podcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, we're going to talk about opportunity zones today. A lot of people are talking about that. And some people think they may have missed the boat. We're gonna see, and we're gonna have some people on there. We're gonna double down on our podcast today. So Vicky Hutchmala from the World Token Market is joining us, and the Opportunity Zones Authority. Vicky, how you doing today?
Doing fabulous, Ron. Another perfect day in Vegas. And we have an interesting podcast today. We have two subjects, two guests, and we're going to talk opportunity zones and low-income housing in an interesting and unique way. So let's get started.
Exactly. Okay, let's introduce our guests. Folks, we have Blake Christian. Blake is from the accounting firm of HVCT. He's a co-founder of MIT Modular. Blake, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
It's always an honor to be on your show. Looking forward to the discussion.
Excellent. And you know what else? We have Roy Maufas. He's the lead designer. He's the chief of operations over at MIT Modular. Roy, how are you doing over there?
Better every day, Ron. Better every day. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Our pleasure.
Good
Our
attitude.
pleasure. You know, like we started off at the top of the podcast, where people are still talking about opportunity zones. It's still a viable program, and a lot of people want more information on it. And I thought maybe today we'd talk to you guys about what's going on in that industry, and maybe get some examples of some good opportunity zone projects and opportunities. But before we do that, Blake, can you start us off? Can you kind of give us a quick background on yourself?
Sure. I've been a CPA for 4 decades. I started my career at one of the big 4, KPMG in Los Angeles. I've been out in Park City, Utah, running that office for about 8 years, but I still have involvement with the Long Beach office. So our firm is 13 offices and about 700 employees, which puts us in the top 30 CPA firms in the country. And I spend about 80% of my time now in the opportunity zone space. My team of 6 full-time people focused on Oz have set up about 170 Oz funds across the country for high net worth individuals. And we're starting new ones every day.
Exactly. Okay, great. And Roy, you have an interesting background as well. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, spent some years delivering sailboats, being a wildland firefighter, film worker, and a traveling rock and roll musician before I started designing homes. Katrina survivor, and that's really where my love for homes really started. For container homes really started there. Spent some time homeless a couple of times in my life, so I've got some insight into some larger social problems that we can use affordable housing to solve.
Yeah, that's awesome. But it's funny. Just a quick side note: you talk about travel and rock and roll. Or boy, when I travel and put the radio on and hear my old time rock and roll things that I love, it makes like a 5-hour trip seem like an hour. So it's really cool.
Right.
And right, isn't that great? But okay, so let's get into the topic of the podcast. Blake, did Opportunity Zone investors maybe miss the boat now that it's 2022?
That's a great question, Ron, and we get that question a lot towards year end, and certainly in January. People said, "Oh, geez, is it really worth investing anymore?" Because they knew there was some benefit if they invested by the end of the year, and that benefit that went away was a 10% basis bump in the fund, which would reduce your gain when you recognized it in 2026, it reduced the gain by 10%. And for federal purposes, the most you'd pay right now is 23.8 for a long-term capital gain. So 10% times 23.8, it's only going to cost you, if rates don't change, 2.4% more in tax in December of 2026 by investing after December 31st, 2021. So it's really, I call it a rounding error in the whole Oz investment world. That 10% basis bump is the lowest benefit of the three. And for those people that aren't familiar with how the program works, you first get, by investing a capital gain, long-term or short-term, within 180 days of generating it, and often it's longer than 180 days, you get a deferral until December 31st, 2026 of reporting that gain. So right now you get a 5-year deferral. So that's pretty valuable. So you get an interest-free loan for 5 years. So you get to plow up, that whole gain into an Oz fund and have all of that money working for you, rather than taking depending on what state you're in, up to a 30+% haircut to pay the current taxes. So that's the first one. Again, we've already talked about the 10% basis bump. And then the third benefit, which is really the big one and why you would do this, is after a 10-year hold on that investment, let's say you rolled $500,000 of gain, and now it's worth $1.5 million in December. In 10 years, that $1 million appreciation goes poof. You never pay tax on it, and all the depreciation you've claimed on that project, if it was real estate or solar, all of that depreciation goes away. Also, you never recapture it. So it's very, very powerful. In my 40 years, there's no other program that is more powerful, and also accomplishes a lot of social, goals that the government has set.
Yeah, you get to feel good by investing your money, not just, it's like that little added bonus to investing, because touches your heart, makes you feel good.
Right, and and that's how the program is set up. It is to encourage people to trigger gains that they wouldn't otherwise generate, and again, it's to have people put their money into up to 8,700 neighborhoods that have been left behind economically over the last century, really.
And it kind of shifts the responsibility or shifts the attitude, maybe, that depressed areas and low-income areas shouldn't always be the responsibility of the government to deal with, but now it gives private investors the opportunity to take some of the burden and then feel like they've made a change to the world in a positive aspect. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone, and the actual residents get the biggest benefit. So what do you think, and how do you think opportunity, it kind of had a slow start, opportunity zones, because a lot of people didn't realize they even existed, that there was such a thing, that the program, even real estate people didn't understand anything about the program. Now, started in 2017, now we're into 2022, and I think it's only been in the last year or two that the most activity has happened. How do you think it's going to go forward? You think the program is going to remain? Are they going to make changes? Is it going to fall apart? What do you anticipate, Blake?
Great questions. What a lot of people don't realize is the the program's genesis was under the Biden-Obama administration, and all the architects of the program were really in their administration. So President Biden is an advocate of the program, and so is Vice President Harris. She likes the entrepreneurial aspects. A lot of people don't realize you can do both real estate projects and operating businesses, and we have probably 30% of our projects are operating businesses, and really I feel that the power and the leverage of an operating business in an opportunity zone is better for the community long term, and it's also going to be more beneficial to the investors. Obviously you need the real estate rehab and new building in those areas also, but operating businesses I think are going to be the big winner. So we don't foresee, what we see is really three changes that's been very public out there for a couple of years, and people in the Oz community are very supportive. We'll have, President Biden wants a little more transparency, so I think we'll see a little bit more tax reporting on Oz funds, a little more disclosure of what your project is, maybe how many jobs you're creating in the community. He also would like to see Oz funds partner with nonprofits in their areas, and then he also wants to do some monitoring of the program to make sure that the impact on the communities that these Oz census tracts fall into are benefiting from the program, and so he'll be doing some studies on that. But nothing, there's no talk of a major, restructuring of the program itself.
Oh, that's great. That's good. That's good news, since it got a slow start. And also there was no history. It was a brand new thing, so there was nothing to look back on. Now there's a history and there's information and data that now you can go in and do the statistics, make sure it's actually working and how it's working and why it's working. Is it too late to reap the benefits if you create an opportunity zone fund or business now in 2022?
No. The only thing that you've lost by waiting is the 10% basis bump, and again, it's 2 to 3% reduced return on your investment. And most of these, when you model them out, are getting projecting 15 to 17% annual return, and that's on a tax, for the most part, tax-free basis, if you operate it and hold it long enough. A 2 to 3% decrease just because you waited until 2022 isn't going to change the attractiveness of Oz investing. And I can tell you right now, January is usually a little slow for CPAs because people are gathering their information. I can tell you this was the busiest January I've had in my 42-year career. Just nonstop calls on Oz funds, and a lot of that is because the economy for the wealthy has been on fire during COVID, and people just have a lot of gains. They're selling real estate. They've made a lot of money in the stock market. They've triggered gains. We have a lot of crypto investors that have massive crypto gains, and almost all of those are short-term gains. And because the tax rate on short-term gains, like for a California resident, could be 50% or more, deferring, at least the federal, is very attractive. The federal alone can be, over 40% with the Obamacare tax, the 3.8% on investors.
Yeah. So
it's amazing.
what I'm hearing from you, Blake, though, is on that third point that you made earlier in the podcast regarding businesses and opportunity zones. That is so powerful. I'm wondering what's the downside at this point for a business opening up or establishing themselves in an opportunity zone? You'd have to be crazy not to, I would imagine. Right? Doesn't that make sense?
Right, and there's really three ways you can get an operating business in an opportunity zone. You can start a new business. You can buy an existing business that might already be in an opportunity zone, or you could, you might already have a business or buy a business that's outside the zone and move it into the zone. Now you do have to meet some criteria, and the easiest way to describe it is it's measured by hard assets, your desks, your chairs, your manufacturing equipment. But as long as you're going to put in, let's say you had $100,000 of hard assets that sat outside the zone in an operating business, and you wanted to make that business an opportunity zone business, as long as you put in another $250,000 of new equipment into the zone, and you moved it, you moved your business. Could it be leased property, or you could buy a facility? You can turn that into an opportunity zone business and then get tax-free gains in 10 years. And I always tell people, a good real estate deal, you might, people kind of expect to at least double their money over a 10-year period. But an operating business, it's not, a reasonably successful operating business could give you, a tenfold increase in, in your return if you operate it right. So, people with a tech business, manufacturing, service business, pretty much anything is eligible. There's a group called of things that are not qualified, like thin businesses, they call massage parlors, liquor stores, tanning
golf
salons.
Courses.
Those. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that gets back to what you said before about the real estate too. When you're real estate related, you're constrained by the building, basically. For example, if you have a multifamily unit and you have 300 doors, you can't get rent from the 301st door. It's not there. But if you have a business, you can grow that business to, sky's the limit at that point. So it's really two different things. But I like the business component of it, and I know that you and Roy are doing something really original in that space as well. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we feel we have a pretty unique opportunity zone fund, and we've been working on this. We've been working together for over 5 years, and then when the opportunity zone program came together, we put our heads together and said, hey, this could be a great opportunity for us to build the business in a tax efficient way. So our structure is we have the opportunity zone fund up on top, and that's the Modular Innovation Technology Opportunity Fund. And then underneath that, we have two distinct businesses. So we have two qualified opportunity zone businesses. One holds the real estate. We have a 19,000 square foot facility in Provo, Utah, and on 2.5 acres, and it's right in the Provo rail yard, and so it's perfect for transportation of raw materials and or finished goods, and so that's one of our businesses. We'll hold that for 10 years, and then the other business is our design and fabrication business. So we have a distinct business that will do the manufacturing within the facility. Now, the reason we structured it that way is there's a code section 1202 qualified small business stock, and so that gives us the flexibility. In 5 years or more, we can sell the operating business under 1202, and each investor can get up to a $10 million tax exemption for that sale. And it just gives, again, a lot of flexibility on exit planning, but we're trying to get ahead of it, with our structuring. So the fact that we have, Roy's excellent design skills and manufacturing experience, and then, I've got the tax experience. It's a good combination, and we think we probably have, one of the most tax efficient Oz funds in the country as a result of this.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. So these are three separate entities, though, Blake. There's a top level entity, and there's two underneath it.
Right. So it's we've got the Oz fund on top, and then two qualified opportunity zone businesses underneath, and then we're also looking at adding a third through Roy's connections. We have a group that has 30 years experience in making bamboo wood products for the construction industry, and it's stronger than plywood. It's
right.
a third less weight, and at least a third less cost, and it's highly sustainable, which is part of our mission. We are an ESG Oz fund, and we're very green in everything that we do. Roy is an expert on that. He'll talk about.
Yeah. So have you started to place any of your finished products any place?
We built two prototypes, and we have a number of orders that we're starting on this month. Long Beach, we have one. We have some projects in right in your backyard in Vegas. We've got some up in Jackson, outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and possibly San Diego. So and almost all of these were unsolicited orders. So we're excited about the reception we're getting in the marketplace.
Oh, excellent. So what are you building in Vegas?
We're meeting with the city. Got a couple of discussions, but it's we're looking at multifamily. Roy can address this in a second, and then we are also looking at a community of single units. And the other thing that we can do, which is great for very hot and very cold areas, we can actually build full-size basements with 7-8 foot ceilings down below, and we can double our square footage on all of these where the city will allow that. Roy, I'll turn it over to you for some of the design and project discussion.
Very
right
interesting.
On.
So
right now,
when you say that you're putting in basements under these modular units, is the basement made up of a modular unit as well, and then the above ground unit is just placed on top of it?
I'll let Roy.
Or are you doing the standard basement?
Actually, we're going to be implementing another modular technology, a panelized insulated concrete form, which allows us to use about 70% less concrete and about 30% less steel in the foundation. So we can actually, and they're actually insulated as well. So we have the ability to more easily thermal regulate the temperature as well. I'm not sure if you know it, but about 4 feet underground, the ground temperature in Vegas is about 62 degrees. So,
Yeah.
And so you're actually able to use the basement as a geothermal heat sink, and actually make much more efficient cooling and heating choices.
Excellent. Well, you certainly need a lot of good cooling here in Vegas.
Absolutely.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah, and Roy, what you guys are doing though isn't just a western part of the country kind of thing. This is applicable to everywhere, right?
Absolutely, and that's one of the benefits of taking an overall sustainable and holistic approach. One of the things we try to do is we try to solve three problems with every design choice, right? So insulation and really good insulation and tightness of the envelope was kind of a no-brainer. That lets us deal with sub-zero temperatures and also Las Vegas at 116 plus sometimes.
It's just true, and we certainly know that. But then, like last week, it goes down into the 40s, and when it's winter time. So you have both sides of the temperature zone there. So excellent.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things that a lot of people, I don't want to say forget about or just don't think about, but really, really efficient insulation goes a long ways, and especially with our building technology, because then we're able to really take advantage of the thermodynamic properties of the steel containers.
You could do I'm learning every day how versatile freight containers are to the future, and you hopped right on it and making the most of it. And are your projects in opportunity zones or not necessarily?
Well, 30% of our projects are in opportunity zones, or I should say 70% of our projects are in opportunity zones, but we actually 30% of our projects are not, and that can come in a variety of different ways. Different municipalities have housing authorities. Different towns are dealing with different problems.
Right.
Overall, there's depending on which reports you're looking at and believing, there's somewhere between 9 and 23 million shortfall of affordable homes. That means we need 9 to 23 million affordable homes across the entire United States. That is a market that is big enough
Absolutely.
for many different new technologies, and I think, and me and Blake very much feel that being able to bring those technologies to bear with the combination of the opportunity zone structure, and then adding another component of actually hiring at-risk vets, battered women, ex-addicts, homeless people, that sort of thing. It allows us to actually empower people in their lives, not just bring a new technology and a new toy and a new widget to the market, but actually remember to bring the human beings as well. And that's really what we do. We are working with a number of municipalities and a number of organizations that have outreach to different groups that are at risk. So we're looking at vets with PTSD. We're looking at any number of different social and economic struggles, and being able to provide, what better way to do it?
Well, everything is relative. You take the first step, and pretty soon you're impacting a lot of things around that first step. You're just creating the modular unit. You've put it in an opportunity zone. You've created jobs to the community. You've created income into the community. You've addressed issues like homelessness. You've addressed issues relative to veterans and women. You've just kind of created this opportunity where people can buy into their community and build it up, make it stronger, make it better, instead of moving away from it and letting it get more distressed. So that's exceptional.
You know, it's really been exciting. As Blake mentioned earlier, like all of these opportunities were unsolicited. We're finishing our facility. We're planning on being in production in March. Yeah, we're planning on being in production in March, but we're already engaging with so many different groups, and I think people really needed and continue to need to feel better about the world. I think the pandemic really gave us all a little pause and started us thinking about, okay, what's really important here? What do we want? What kind of a world do we want? Do we want our workers to be honored? And workers need to make a living wage. It's we're hiring people now, right? And you're hearing all of these complaints about there being a worker shortage. Well, our minimum wage is $15 an hour. That's the least anyone in our factory makes. And you know what? We're not finding that labor shortage. Apparently, it's actually just a pay shortage. And we're finding that we have access to many talented people, and moreover, because of what we're doing and how we're doing it, we're actually, there are people who are, making a little less because they want to make a difference. And so we're able to get some really great, passionate talent. And as any employer out there will tell you, man, happy employees, inspired employees do great work, and those are great production numbers on the way.
Absolutely.
And, both our workers as well as our customers and prospective customers, they're very, very excited about the container housing solution. Whenever you bring it up, people get very passionate very quickly about, oh man, I love that, and they start talking about, different designs they've seen, and man, I would love to have one of those. So we're seeing, from the time we started 5 years ago, where a lot of our discussions were, especially when we talk with, municipalities, was you can't have somebody live in a container. That's cruel. To now, it's like, oh, if you do that project, we'll fast track it. We love this concept. And again, the sustainability elements, the affordability elements, the mobility of these units, they'll for the most part, they're going to be permanent, but we can fasten them to be, transferred in a day. So it works really well when you're dealing, again, with municipalities or landowners, where we say, hey, we're going to do a 3-year land lease. And, because they may have a multifamily stick build construction project that's waiting approvals, but in the meantime, we could put, 15 of our container homes there. And then at the end of that period, when they start construction, we can move them someplace else. And, maybe we'll have bought land by then and moved them, or just do another land lease. So the flexibility, you can't do that with a condo.
That's right. Right. Isn't that what they call ESG investing, or social impact investing? Isn't that the buzzword these days, Blake?
Yep. yeah, we tick every box at multiple times. So, you know, we're definitely green. We're socially conscious, and we are creating jobs and training of people, and that's always been our goal. You know, we used to, you know, talk about this, you know, over coffee and lunches years ago, and we said, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful to have people that are homeless building their own homes, either getting a new trade, refining a trade maybe that we have, and then they have a full-time job. And you know, that's you know, that's becoming a reality now. You know, we're seeing these people. There's a lot of people that are homeless. You know, they fell on hard times. They already have a trade. You know, they were an electrician, they were a plumber, they were, you know, construction.
Well, look
trade.
at Roy. Roy's your perfect example of that right there. Right. So, and now I would imagine at this point, I just have one more question before we close this out. You guys are looking for investors into your fund as well. Actually, two questions. One is when you created the fund, how does the IRS know that this is an opportunity zone fund? And number two is when an investor invests in your fund, what is it that they're investing in specifically? Are they investing in all three entities or just like the top level one?
Yeah, so a great question, Ron. And we, you know, most of our investors are investing up through at the top level, and so they will have ownership in both the building as well as MIT Design and Fabrication, the builder. And but we do have some people, you know, set up an Oz fund 2 or 3 years ago and now are deploying cash. They cannot invest fund to fund. And there was just a Treasury report that came out last week that said there's been about $2 billion that have been invested erroneously. We're going to see if Congress fixes that. But what happens is in those situations that other Oz fund can invest downstream into our building, QOZB, or the operating business. And so we have flexibility to deal with whether it's, you know, a first-time investor or somebody coming in through their own Oz fund. But we raised about $1.5 million at year end. We only had we're only soliciting for the last month of the year, and we're doing our second round raise starting this week, and because of us likely bringing on this bamboo manufacturing, you know, we originally targeted $5 million raise, but we'll be looking more at the $10 million raise because this is a whole new, you know, a new dimension to our, you know, our construction, and it also provides us with lower cost materials that we'll have captive in this structure. So we're excited about everything going on.
Yeah, and as an accountant, I'm sure a lot of people need to get a hold of you, and specifically on this MIT opportunity as well. What should someone do if they want more information?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is just Google Blake Christian CPA, and all of my articles and MIT will come up, and all of my contact information, and Roy is spelled ROI, return on investment, right? and
I'm easily reached.
Roy,
I'm easily reached at MITmodular.com.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad you mentioned that, Blake, because I would have spelled it wrong in the show notes after this. Because everyone watching this or listening to this right now can go to the show notes page, click on all the stuff. We'll have links to everything that we talked about on the podcast today. But you know, I mean, we started off this podcast. I said, did you miss the boat on 2022 for opportunity zones? And obviously, the answer is no, you did not. And then we brought on a project that's just fantastic. It's got a lot of good potential. Vicki, is this what the Mappable USA podcast is all about?
Absolutely, Ron. It's educating all of our listeners into the possibilities of what's happening, and the thing that's really important to people, and that's a connection to our fellow man, a connection that changes the world for the better. And at the same time, what Blake and Roy are doing is they're making the Opportunity Zone program realize its ultimate purpose by elevating and changing the lives of the people who live in those distressed areas. And it's just kudos to you, Blake and Roy, for taking the charge and leading the way and showing people this is what's important, this is what we need to do, and here are the tools and the possibilities to make it happen. Outstanding job you guys have done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate you letting us come on your show and talk about this.
Yeah, I think what we should do
always
is...
our pleasure, Blake.
I think we should do a transcript of whatever Vicki just said, Blake, and then just put it on your website. That was just that was pretty good.
I love
it. But it's the truth. It's the absolute truth.
But anyway, Blake and Roy, thanks a lot for being a guest on the show today. It was really good information. I'm glad we finally answered this question that's been we've been talking about this for a long time since the year started. And Vicki, thanks for co-hosting. Folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast at mappableusa.com. If you just go to that website, scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. Subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. And if you want to be a guest on the show, like Blake and Roy were today, you can fill out the guest tab there. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, send us an email at info@mappableusa.com, or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.